Today we're going into controversial territories, darling. If these were the Middle Ages, I'd definitely be burned at the stake. So today I'm gonna be talking about shows that are loved by the great majority of people, but that I feel, in my own personal opinion, are frankly just overrated. And I'm not necessarily talking about shows that are overrated but I still like, for example Together, which in my opinion didn't deserve to be the one BL that blew up that much, but anyway, I like Together. The shows I'm gonna be talking about, not that much. Until we meet again. Let's start with probably the opinion that's gonna piss off the most people, because firstly it's one of the most popular BL series ever, and secondly it's the favorite BL in terms of quality of many people, but I don't really like Until We Meet Again. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not a horrible series at all, but for me it missed the mark on many things, even though its concept was very original and interesting. I love the concept of the series, yet after a few episodes its flaws were more and more noticeable. Firstly, while the plot is very innovative, it got repetitive very quickly. More than half the episodes are Dean and Palm crying and remembering things. The random family members that link them were a good plot twist at first, but then again it got repetitive real fast. And then they made this show be 18 episodes instead of the announced 13. And it got even worse. So yeah, very boring. Apart from that, I didn't like Dean and Parm that much. The chemistry was a bit weird for my taste and it just didn't entice me at all. On the other hand, Tim Wynn, the most popular couple of the show, didn't get any development whatsoever. Like, if you're not aware of their storyline from the novel, you legitimately wouldn't get their story on the show at all. Because they have a couple of scenes at the beginning of the show, a couple of scenes at the end, and that's it. So yeah, just by fixing these few things, the show would have been way better in my opinion. There's things I like about it, like the acting and the original storyline. But it gets overshadowed by the flaws very easily, because the show is so long that the flaws are just that much more noticeable. Blacklist. So I wouldn't say that Blacklist is really that beloved of a show, but it was certainly popular. So here I just want to talk about how this show managed to build success of its cast and especially its similarity to The Gifted, because it really fascinates me. So while most people who have watched the show can agree that there were just too many plot holes and it was just extremely messy, it shocks me to see how extremely successful this show was, be it in Thailand or even internationally. I would actually say The Gifted had a slower success than Blacklist, because I remember watching The Gifted in 2019 and each episode only had 500,000 views. The show actually blew up after I watched it. Whereas Blacklist was an instant success, mostly because it had two cast members of The Gifted who are very shipped together. I would honestly say Nanon and Shimon are the ultimate GMMTV crack ship, so them alone drew in a certain number of audiences. But on top of that, the show's premise is very close to The Gifted, with students having to uncover their school secrets. And next to Nanon and Shimon, there's Om, their best friend and a BL legend. Drake and Frank, again BL legends for having become a stable ship, meaning they had more than one project together as a ship very early in their careers at GMMTV. And finally First, who was definitely the least known of the six, but that doesn't mean he's not one of my faves. So with all of that, the audiences watch this train wreck of a show, and it frankly amazes me to see how easy it was to play us like a fiddle. End of Love, Love Mechanics. Now, in my years in the BL fandom, I'm glad to announce that I've grown as a better person. I used to get hung up on every little thing. For example, the show romanticization. Oh, sorry, I mean Turn Type. Getting so much success. By the way, trust me, Turn Type is actually the #1 in this list. I'm just not extensively talking about it in this video or even in the rest of my channel, because it legitimately takes years of my life to talk about it. But anyways, I used to get so hurt that such a harmful show was that popular. And then I learned, more for the sake of my mental health than anything else, to let it go. But I must admit that when I see how much the Love Mechanics actors have become successful because of it, how they got a full series, they've released singles, and they also got another show recently called The Best Story, I can't help but feel bitter, because Love Mechanics was definitely the worst one out of the End of Love series. And End of Love as a whole was very mediocre, so that just tells you something. I mean, we basically Mark because Mark is drunk and we is not during their first time. Since I was talking about turn type, big turn type vibes here. But also we is just so toxic. Like generally, I don't think I've hated the Thai drama character as much as I hate him. With the exception of Turn the Racist, of course. Okay, I'll stop dragging turn type. But anyways, Love Mechanics is extremely overrated and I'll never understand why it got so popular. Reply 1997. It's time for me to trash everyone's favorite K-drama! Yay! I can already feel the pure anger this comment section is gonna be filled with, and I can't wait. But yeah, I watched this show because it was super popular and I hated it. Well, I mostly hated it because I forced myself to continue watching it despite not liking it. You see, the thing about me is that when the first episode of a show leaves me divided, I always give the show a second chance. And honestly, more time than not, it has worked. For example, one of my favorite Thai dramas, Sleepless Society Insomnia, had a meh first episode and then consistently blew me away afterwards. Seriously, go watch this show. I know I keep recommending it, but it's so underrated and so good. So here I didn't love the first episode, so I watched the second one. I still wasn't convinced, so I gave it another chance. And then when I was at episode 3 and still not liking it, it felt like I had gone too far to not finish it. So I do have to admit that my disliking of this show is at least partially my fault. But I generally didn't like the characters, especially the male lead. He was so bland but also annoying and I just couldn't be convinced at all. Every character is so surface level. And you all know what I love is deep, complex characters that get a lot of character development. Here there was none of that. On top of that, nothing happens in this series. The romance isn't developed at all, and all of the fangirl storyline were extremely annoying. Like, I'm sorry, but I can never not see stories mocking fangirls as honestly sexist and mocking femininity, instead of trying to understand why people are fangirls. But anyways, women are always mocked for their passions, even though there's actually a lot of psychological reasons as to why you'd be a stan of someone. But anyway, it just was extremely hard for me to finish this series. And for that reason alone, I hated it. Sorry.
To be clear, I don't hate stories with fangirls. I do think we can highlight how toxic fangirls can be while not demonizing them.
Kiss Me Again. So if you follow my channel, you know I consider Kiss Me Again to be one of the worst shows ever, despite being incredibly popular. And to most people's credit, almost everyone watched this series for the Pete Cow storyline. The issue though is that Pete Cow's storyline in that show isn't good either. Like, I know for a fact that if Pete Cow and Kiss Me Again happened today in 2021, they would be forgotten in approximately 2 weeks. But at the time of release, BL ships were still quite sparse, with about 10 a year. So fans jumped onto Pete Cow and literally launched a news career with it. It's amazing to me to think about it, because honestly even Pete Rome in Puppy Honey weren't that great either. So like, imagine an alternate universe without Afghan. You know what? Forget about it. I don't want to imagine it. But anyways, Puppy Honey was still quite enjoyable. Kiss Me Again? A shipwreck. And I do get that Pete Cow are the only kinda okay thing about this trash show, but even then their story is not really good. The chemistry wasn't nearly as good as in Dark Blue Kiss, and I'm gonna say it, Pete is just not a good character. He's okay in Dark Blue Kiss, though gonna be honest, the only reason why I like him in Dark Blue Kiss is because it aired directly after Tree Will Be Free, which made me a Tetawan stan. But yeah, in general, his character is not very likable and everything is lacking in their story. Their storyline is basic as hell, with the evil girlfriend storyline, jealousy, miscommunication, but none of it is executed well. And again, the acting and chemistry don't save it at all. Mark my words, but if this came out today and they knew weren't already famous, no one would care about Kiss Me Again in the way they did 3 years ago.
Yeah, I was so hung up on Pete Cow that I completely forgot to talk about the rest of the characters and storylines that are even worse than Pete Cow. First we have Marsh and Fawn. Marsh is so forceful towards her. Like, he literally forces kisses on her. It's so aggressive and I hated that. The ship with Mon and Tanner was just terrible. She thinks he's gay and spends the whole show trying to prove that he's gay, and that's I know the only ship I liked apart from Pete Cow that I kinda liked was Earth and the Biggest Sister, but they were the least developed, so still that was a flop.
My Ambulance. Another show you probably know I dislike if you watch my channel, especially the video where I rank all of the Thai actors I know. Honestly, it's sad because that poor show isn't that terrible, but again, it's just an instance where I just shouldn't have watched it. Now, did I get roped in because of this side gay ship that wasn't even confirmed and where one of them died? But because I caught up with the show only halfway through, I only learned about it at the end while watching the show and have kept that bitterness in my heart forever. Yup. That's definitely the first thing that annoyed me about this show. Is first you've got low-key queerbaiting because the ship is never confirmed, but also all the subtext is there. But also you've got the bury your gays trope, which is just yikes to do in 2019. Not that it was ever not yikes. But then again, the shipper did it in 2020, so I mean... But apart from that, the show was too long, the romance was too messy and not satisfying enough, and it was just a huge waste of time. What pisses me off is that this show looks great, the acting is incredible, the budget was really good. All of that to create such a disappointment. So I guess the only really good thing about this show is that the fans were so pissed off that Bilkin's character died that Nadao Bangkok decided to create Aito Sunset About You, which then was ruined by its sequel, I Promise You the Moon. Now thinking about it, the fact that 2 out of 3 shows where Bilkin PP were a ship sucked ass is kinda shocking. Maybe they're cursed. At this point it wouldn't be far-fetched to believe it. Close friends. Now I might get slack because I've only watched half of the episodes of this series, but I feel like I've seen enough. But also I do want to bring this sort of series up because it fascinates me. The fact that now we've reached a point where you can put a bunch of BL actors in a project, be it a series or a music album, and just know the fans are gonna eat it up is absolutely genius. Work harder, not smarter, I guess. So yeah, I didn't hate the 3 episodes I saw. I was just left so underwhelmed, I couldn't quite believe it. Why Destiny was mediocre, but at least it had interesting moments. And it actually had enough screen time to develop their relationships and characters. Close Friends episodes are between 14 and 20 minutes. So legit nothing happens because there's just no time. The only story I liked out of the Yoonle, Me Too and Kim Cup ones was the Me Too one. Even though I was still left so frustrated because I just wanted more out of this story. So yeah, if there weren't already established and well-liked BL ships in this, no one would have given it the light of day. But we did, so joke's on us, I guess. Strong Woman Do Bong Soon. Now, I'm ready to get killed again, but this show was genuinely a huge disappointment. There were elements I liked, especially the male lead, but it's also one of these shows I should have dropped after the first episode didn't convince me. But in this specific case, it was a recommendation from a friend, so I was even nicer with it. But in the end, it just contained too many things I didn't like. This show was too long in my opinion, something that's very present in K-dramas especially. The ship got boring after a while. I hated the love triangle because I hate love triangles in general, and the secondary ship was absolutely useless and added nothing to the show. I hated this scene where the male lead gives the female lead a tracking device without her consent, basically removing all of her agency. It's sad because there was so much to do with the concept of a woman that's stronger than anyone else on earth, and I feel like they fumbled the bag a little bit. I also think that because I had watched Weightlifting Fairy Kim Bok-joo prior to this, which is the K-drama in terms of romance apparently, I couldn't help but feel disappointed when this show that had quite a similar plot just didn't live up to my expectations. It wasn't terrible at all, but I can't help but wonder why it's so popular. Views of Love, Grey Rainbow. Now I genuinely think I'll do a full video on BL shows that have aged badly soon, and this will definitely be on the list. I thought I remembered this show to have been released in 2015, but actually it was in 2016, the same year as shows like Sotus and Make It Right. So that just shows how quickly the BL industry has been evolving. Because at the time, this show was the shit. If Sotus was definitely more popular in terms of views, I would say Grey Rainbows was actually regarded as a better show in terms of quality. And it's like Kiss Me Again, if this was released again today, it wouldn't even be in the biggest BL releases of the year. That show is not terrible at all, and it had a lot of good moments. And it was definitely more woke about actual LGBTQ+ issues than the rest of the BL series at the time. Well, until they fumbled the bag and used the bury your gays trope in the end. There is truly a lot of good elements in this series. And I'd love to see it remade today as a movie without the crappy ending, because I feel it'd be much stronger that way. But yeah, the acting is a bit meh, the chemistry is wobbly and depends on the scene, and the production as a whole lacks a bit. Even though it's an okay show, it's definitely not the groundbreaking series people thought it was 5 years ago. So this was it for today's video. Hope I didn't rustle too many feathers, but it was all in good fun, and diversity of opinions is what makes the world what it is. Tell me if I should do the opposite of this concept for another video, shows most people hate but I low-key like. And also don't hesitate to share with me your list of shows everyone loves but you don't in the comments down below. I'll see you next time and have a great day.